going on, guys? Welcome to another video. I'm here at Havelock, North Carolina at the Marine base, and that's why I got the Marine cut, because I'm going to the gym with my buddy. Haven't seen him in a while, and they kept staring at me because I'm a civilian, so I decided to get the medium reg cut that Marines get. Anyways, I can't film on base, and that's why I haven't uploaded a video in a while, because if I did, obviously I'd probably get a subpoena from the Marine Corps. So we're here at the Visitor Center with this Phantom, and I thought we'd have a little change of scenery, and I hope you like enjoy the cut at least. Anyways, today's video is a video with Kai. Kai's in London. It's kind of like a Makers Academy review, which is where he went, talking about what he learned, how they taught things, and just his overall opinion of it. And he got a job in almost just about a week after he finished. One thing I want to point out is that the cost of living is very different here in the US versus in the UK, and so what you get paid as salary is also very different. And so when he says he gets paid 40,000 pounds, here you get paid, $55,000 or $60,000 per year, and it's just different. So I've seen some people like saying, "Oh, that's not a lot of money." Well, there for this particular job, he's getting paid well above average. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate that, and I'll try to keep uploading more videos more often. It's like 30 degrees here and my hands are freezing. I'll see you guys in the next one. Press F to pay respects for my hair. Straight to the point, you're in London. You went to Makers Academy. How long did it take to get a job after Makers Academy?
So after Makers Academy, it took me about a week, maybe two. I think about a week, because I had like a bunch of tech tests I had to do from a bunch of different companies.
And where do you work?
A pretty well-known server company in Cambridge called Redgate Software. We make SQL server tools.
And how long have you been there now?
I just passed probation about a month ago, so about nearly 5 months.
So I know in the UK, cost of living and pay for software developers is very different than the US. Can we ask how much you get paid, what the average salary is, and what the average salary for a Makers Academy graduate?
I make a bit under 40K, let's say around 38K total compensation, because part of it's my base salary and part of it's like bonus that I get at the end of the year. So I think the average in the UK for a graduate developer is about 24K. And I think Makers Academy, like on average students make about 30K.
Okay, so did you go to college?
Yeah, I went to college. I went to university in London. I studied politics. About 2 years in, I was just like, yeah, I can't take this anymore. I wasn't enjoying my course, but I had started getting into programming again. So I thought, hey, I'll drop out and I'll become a software engineer.
Did you have any experience with software before this, or you were just like, because that seems kind of like a rash change if you had no background in that whatsoever?
Yeah, so I've been programming on and off since I was about 12 or 13.
So you mentioned before that Makers Academy doesn't really focus on like a web stack or any stack in particular. They just teach you the foundations and the principles of object-oriented programming. And I believe they start you off with Ruby, and your job now is C#, but your projects at Makers Academy were a mixture of MERN and something else.
We did, when they were trying to introduce us to new concepts like a web server and like a RESTful application, they taught us using Sinatra and sometimes Rails. But that was more just to explain the concept of these things. And the idea was that we would be able to use any language like Python and Django or PHP if you'd ever want to touch that, or JavaScript.
So if you got your job in less than a week after finishing Makers Academy, what was that interview process like? Did they come to you? Did you go to them? Was there a really hard tech test? What did that look like?
It was a mixture of both. So Makers has a networking event during the final week when they're presenting our final projects, and they have a bunch of companies come to us and pitch to us why we would want to work at their companies. Then generally the company sends you a tech test, and if you do well on that tech test, they invite you in for an interview. So did a tech test. I was invited in for an interview. It was a day-long interview. So we were given a Minesweeper game, an incomplete Minesweeper game in C#, which none of us had worked with before. And we were told that you have 2 days to learn C# best you can. And then you're going to pair with a tech lead on how to fix this broken program. Redgate had hired some makers the year before. And so those makers also told us about like how it was adjusting to like an actual software engineer's life.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. What is it like working on an actual software team versus being in a code bootcamp? Like, was there imposter syndrome? Do you have any idea what you're doing? What was like the gap between Makers Academy and where you're at now?
Oh man, honestly, that was like massive imposter syndrome. When I finished Makers Academy, I thought like I thought I was it, you know. All of these web applications, I had a bunch of job offers. I thought, yeah, I'm like a fully qualified developer and I can solve any problem like a company chucks at me. And Redgate's based in Cambridge and they have lots of Oxford graduates and they've got like some really, really senior software engineers. Like, for example, on my team, I think like the average amount of experience is like 8 years. When I was like going through my onboarding process and I was programming with them, the way that how quickly they code, like how elegant their code is, how clean it is, like how it solves the problem like so directly without like them even having to think much. I thought, well, I'm never going to be able to achieve this.
When you said they gave you a lot of training, they put you through a lot of training, does that mean like pair programming, or was there like, here's some videos, go watch how this works?
First, there were lots of videos, lots of plural site training, lots of ebooks. But every day, whenever I went into work, I was pair programming with a senior developer. Some software products have like massive code bases, and even if you are an experienced developer, it's very difficult to traverse across said code bases unless you've been shown it by like a more senior developer, someone with more experience.
You went to Makers Academy in London. Why is that?
Well, it was the best reviewed, and I went into a few different bootcamps. I think I went into General Assembly and another bootcamp that was actually pretty close to Makers to like have a look around and see how they did their syllabus. And Makers just stood out to me, really. They just seemed like they seem more competent.
And there is a guarantee there, right?
So they didn't have a guarantee when I was thinking about applying, but when I actually like just think a few days before I actually applied, like I saw a Medium post saying that now Makers has a job guarantee. So essentially, if you've been looking for a job for particular amount of time after you finish the course and you can't find one, you get a full refund on your fees.
What was the fee? What was the cost of tuition?
The cost of tuition was about 8K, so £8,000.
I know you mentioned before that to get into Makers is already really hard. They have like a 5% acceptance rate. It's pretty low. What exactly do they put you through before you can be accepted to get in?
They send you a link to something like there's some online web document about Ruby, and then they just put me through a bunch of katas similar to ones that you would see on like similar sort of exercises to Code Wars, and you have to talk through your thinking process as you're doing it.
With someone from Makers or with just like another student?
With someone from Makers, yeah.
Okay, so did you prep for a while before you had that? I guess that was like almost like an interview, or did you do that and an interview?
So that was like the interview because like they were interviewing me and pair programming with me. I prepped for it a lot. I was really worried about like not being accepted in, and like my family was pretty up in arms about me dropping out of uni. I had to make sure that there was like some sort of positive response, like showing that like I'm not completely like screwed in the future.
And this was an in-person boot camp, right? So you lived in London, it was in London, and you had to show up there every day.
Yeah.
How big was the cohort?
I think it was 14 people in my cohort. I think another cohort had a bit more people, maybe like 19, but I was lucky enough to be put on a smaller cohort.
Did you have one-on-ones with your teachers, or was there a mentor? How'd that work?
You don't really have one-on-ones with a coach unless you like need help with a very specific problem. There were always coaches available if like you're struggling with something. Most of the day would consist of some sort of like lecture in the morning, followed by pair programming with another maker for the entirety of the day.
How many people in your cohort got hired? And what are some companies or places that people at Makers Academy get hired at?
Off the top of my head, I only think of a handful of people who haven't been hired. I know someone who works at The Guardian. I know someone who works at Trainline. I know people that work for like Tesco's, which even though it's just like a supermarket, it's one of the largest online retailers in the entirety of Europe.
If you could go back in time before you started Makers Academy, what would you tell yourself to make it easier on you? Or
I think that you should try and like make sure that the quality of your code throughout the bootcamp is extremely high, because generally at Makers Academy, at least, all of our stuff is on public GitHubs, and it turns out employers do go through those GitHubs. And I was told, along with a few other people from the cohort, that we were picked for interviews because they had gone through our GitHub and looked at like a few things I had done like in week 2 or week 3, but I had really good clean code. I had like dry code, everything. I followed all the solid principles. I'd say maintain your quality of code from the beginning to the end, because you never know when someone's going to dig up your work and have a look at it and whether it'll be part of the criteria for you being hired.